Non-verbal communication, lecture 1, part 1. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum guys. I hope you all are doing well, inshallah. In this lecture, I am going to talk about the non-verbal communication. In our previous lectures, we have talked about communication and its different types and different levels. Non-verbal communication is a form of communication. Basically, guys, we need to understand that there are two forms of communication. And this is the verbal communication and non-verbal communication. These are the forms of communication. So please do not confuse these two forms of communication with the types of communication or the levels of communication that we have already discussed. For instance, before I go and describe verbal and non-verbal communication, let me just clarify these two things differently. For instance, we were talking about the levels of communication, right? If you remember in our previous lectures, and I talked about the interpersonal, intrapersonal, person to person, group communication, and mass communication. These were the levels of communication, and during all these levels of communication, these two forms of communication are simultaneously occurring. Okay, for instance, right now I am talking to you guys. Okay, this is a person to person communication. Okay, I am talking to you, you are listening to me, but this is a verbal communication, and at the same time non-verbal communication. So how is it, we are going to talk later, but first you guys should make it clear in your mind that so far whatever we have discussed, all the levels of communication, in all those levels this verbal and non-verbal communication occurs simultaneously or separately. How does it occur? Now we are going to talk about it. So before we talk about it, let us define the verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication is the communication where there is word involved. Okay, written, spoken, any kind of word. When there is a word involved in communication, that communication is called as verbal communication. Okay, so if you remember, all these types of communication and all those levels of communication that we have already discussed in our previous lectures, they all fall in this category. They all fall in this form of communication, and that is verbal communication. So right now what you are listening is a verbal communication, because you are listening to a person, Junaid Ghori. He is speaking about something, you are listening to some words. These words are the verbal communication. Okay, now what is non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication is a form of communication when there is no word involved in it. Okay, suppose uh, like you heard some voice right now. This sound may create any kind of meaning in your mind. Okay, that meaning that comes through this whistle. This whistle is a way of communication, and this communication process, this form of communication, is non-verbal communication. Suppose you are listening to my lecture right now, and there is a cracker that goes off in your street. Some kid does it in the street, and at once your attention goes towards that. So there is no word involved in it, there is nothing like that, but that noise, that sound is a type of message that came to you, and that message that came to you is a process, and that process is a non-verbal communication when there is no word involved. Similarly, when you go and meet your mother touches you, touches your shoulder or your forehead, kisses your forehead or your hand, This gesture gives you a kind of message. That message, guys, is the non-verbal communication. You are standing on the road, okay, you are on the bike, you are on the in the car, you are driving a car, and on the road you see that in the crossway there is a red light, okay. So that red light is giving you a message, and what is that message? Stop. So what would you do? You will stop, you will have to stop. And then when there is the yellow light, you are told, you are being given a message that you get ready for traveling. And then there is a green light, and that means that you are going to start your car again and you are traveling again. So these three different colors, they are actually colors, but they are giving you the message. So this is a form of non-verbal communication that does not include any kind of words, but there is a message, and that message comes through a process, and that process is called as non-verbal communication. Now this non-verbal communication, as I told you earlier, is everything except your words, written, spoken, visual, or static or moving words, whatever kind of words. When there is a word involved in communication process, that communication is verbal, and when there is no word involved, that communication is non-verbal. So how does this non-verbal communication actually occur? We are going to talk about in the next piece of our audio lecture. So until next audio lecture, stay tuned. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.